Okay. See if we get some.
Do we have to click on video?
Nope, we're here.
Oh,
This
but
is-
the camera, you don't need to do
If you
it.
click that, it'll turn it off.
Oh, viewer.
We're just gaining viewers now, so we're just gonna wait a couple minutes, everyone. We see people are just starting to be able to log in. So we're gonna give people maybe 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. We're gonna mute here until we get there. Hello, everyone. So thanks for waiting with us. I think we have probably the people we'll start off with. So as you can tell, we're on an on-air, so we can actually, so people may want to mute their mics a little bit while they do so, but the big thing is you will still be able to ask questions. You'll just ask them in the chat function, and Hannah right here, who will introduce herself in just a moment, will kind of be monitoring that throughout. But with that, we'll start off with introductions. I know you know the man to this side super well, so I don't know if Daniel wants to say anything in particular.
Just hello, thank you for taking the time to join us. I think this is one of the highlights of the program, so I'm very, very excited and looking forward to spend some quality time with you, not only in the spring term, but also during the summer term.
And I'm Rachel Foxoven, and I'm the Director of Graduate Business Programs and have been helping run these trips for the better part of 7 or 8 years, but am transitioning a bit. But I'm here tonight to kind of talk you through what the next steps will be. And we'll be working closely with the woman to my other side over here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hannah Fisher. I am the faculty-led program coordinator in the Education Abroad office here on campus. So I work with all of the international programs for all across the entire campus. And I will be your contact for a variety of different logistical pieces that we'll get into later. So expect to see emails from both Rachel and myself going forward. And feel free to reach out to either of us if you're unsure who to go to. We'll make sure you get it to the right place.
Absolutely. So with that, tonight we're really hoping to just kind of walk you through what is next. I know a number of you, we had talked at orientation for those that just came in during fall term, and you thought there was going to be a survey during fall term, because I did as well, but we thought better of it and thought we'd just wait until we get you into the system and cut down a piece of the process for you. So tonight I'll really just walk you through what to expect, what's next, some logistics about getting geared up. We, of course, will be in contact, and Daniel, as your guide throughout the time, will be in contact often, especially as we get near the end of winter term and start gearing up truly to start thinking during spring and summer about those pre-departure steps. So with that, I'm gonna pull up our PowerPoint, and really, you don't have to stare at us here in this blank white room for too long. We'll share our screen with you all. All right. Did it not go through? Just 2 moments while we're fast. You, Hannah. The never ending. All right. So as I mentioned, here are the major pieces that we'll go through tonight. The first thing is we'll talk about the timeline of getting geared up to go from here until you actually depart in August. We'll really focus on the front end of that timeline tonight, since those are the most relevant realities right now for you. We'll talk about the current tasks that you should be working on right now. Little did you know, hopefully you did know, based on the student checklist and some of the videos that we already have available to you all. We'll talk about, in 2 weeks, the applications, what we really call applications, but are truly a survey and your indication that you are planning to travel this summer, will be available through the online system Vikings Abroad. And so we'll talk through what that will look like and what your steps will be. And as I mentioned, those will be open during the week of January 22nd, so coming up here very quickly. And then we'll just talk through, because I know you all are anxious to start talking about and thinking about how to purchase your international airfare and what the next steps are on visas and getting geared up to travel. So we'll talk through what that looks like. Again, as I mentioned in my email a couple of weeks ago, we're not ready to take any of those steps yet. So we'll talk you through why that is and when will be the time to really start taking action on those pieces. So a little bit of a reminder, and I'll ask Daniel to speak about anything he wants to about the trip this year. But so these are tentative dates. We are still working. They are generally true. It will be this time period. We're just working with our logistics and on-ground partners right now to verify a day or two on either end based on flights and logistics realities. So those may adjust just by a day or two on either end. But those are the dates you should now be looking at and starting to plan for. This year, we're still in process of planning, as I mentioned, but we are tentatively planning on definitely Vietnam and China, and the cities being Saigon, potentially Hanoi, and Shenzhen. Anything you want to add, Daniel?
Right, so the backup plan in the event that these 3 cities are not in terms of factories are not available to host us, then we'll be going to Saigon and Beijing, okay? We normally in the past, we do Saigon, which is also part of Ho Chi Minh City, and Beijing. But what we have also noticed is that Beijing is really more of a capital city. It's less about the factory, where what I think we ought to do is ought to go to the new place, to us, but not necessarily to the rest of the world. Shenzhen is the Silicon Valley of China, right? So this is where all the actions are occurring, where you see factories, leading edge innovation. We want to be the first to get there and understand how we do it. And that's going to prepare your career much better than going to the capital. You're going to see great stuff in Beijing, but I think Shenzhen is going to be more exciting in that sense. So that's our hope. In the event Shenzhen is not ready to host us, then we'll fall back on Beijing.
All right, so let's talk timeline and what is next. So right now, we're in an information session. We'll be posting this info online as well, so you all have access to it, including these slides, post our conversation tonight. As I mentioned, in late January, or the week of January 22nd, the applications through the online portal Vikings Abroad will go live. And you'll get an email from us letting you know that those are open and ready to go. And that is where you'll go on and really confirm your participation by filling out the forms needed to apply to travel this summer. That online, we'll talk about it a little bit more, and I'll let Hannah, as she sees fit, talk about Vikings Abroad and really the purpose as far as getting you all in that system. But the purpose of it is another system to learn and interact with, but it's really our risk and safety management system here at the university. So all people that are traveling on behalf of the university are going through that portal and registered through that portal. So should anything happen in the world, we really have record, and our education abroad folks can really manage and troubleshoot that. On February 5th, you'll have about 2 weeks to get in there, to get into Vikings Abroad and to complete the tasks. And we'll provide you with instructions at that time about what you'll need to complete in the system. It is a fairly easy process for you all. As we mentioned, typically students apply into these programs, but this is a requirement for your trip and for your curriculum. So there are just some sign-off pieces that we really need you to indicate, and it also serves as that indication that you are geared up and ready to travel this summer. During the week of February 19th, once we kind of see that everyone's in there and help finish getting people through that system, then we will just confirm we're set, we're ready to go, and then we will open it up to the next step of the process, which will start asking you some additional information. And we'll talk through that and provide you instructions. There will be additional follow-up forms such as health disclosure forms, and those types of things that will help you get geared up to travel and help us communicate with our on-ground partners about the pieces that we'll need to coordinate for you all. The big thing is once you go in there, you'll have to confirm after you've been accepted to the program, you'll have to confirm that you are indeed ready to go. And I'll talk through a little bit later what that means, hitting that confirm button, because it is something you want to make sure that you're totally ready to do before you get there. And finally, once we get everyone totally confirmed in the program, and as soon as we finish working out our ground logistics, as soon as possible, we will send you a logistics packet that will include the next steps for purchasing your airfare. It will give you instructions, detailed instructions, including a preferred flight and what steps are necessary to take after that. So I'm going to talk you through each one of these a little bit more in detail. So the big thing is right now, what you should be doing in preparation for this travel is making sure that a number of things are in order. So the first thing is preparing your passport. You need to be checking your expiration date of your passport. The big thing is that countries often want you to have it, and the US wants you to have it be valid 6 months post your re-entry to the US. So for you all, that's March 2019. So you need to make sure your passport is valid through that time. You also need to make sure you have at least 2 blank pages for visas. You'll also want to be preparing any additional travel documents that you may need. You all know your situations best, but especially for any international students that may be residing here or residents here in the US and need to renew US visas in order to be able to come back into the US after. There are less of you on this trip that's relevant to, but if you do have any pieces relevant to you around additional travel documentation, you'll want to be preparing and working on those realities now. You'll also want to be exploring your ability to travel, creating a financial plan, and then, of course, as we mentioned, applying into Vikings Abroad when it opens up. So, as I mentioned, passports, March 2019 is your magical date to make sure that you have that valid through. And the process has changed. If you haven't renewed a passport in a while, if you need additional pages, you can no longer just send it in and get additional pages added on. You do usually have to completely renew your passport to get those additional pages now. So that's something that if you don't have those pages, you will want to start that process now. This is all critical for both purchasing your flight and completing the visa process steps. So that's why we're asking you to start this process now. To talk you through a little bit more of what I mean by exploring your ability to travel, So right now, you know your personal visa realities, or you know your personal status. So you can already start looking on the consulate websites for both China and Vietnam and looking at those realities for yourself. We will help you a bit through that process and provide guidance around that. Nearly all students will need both a Vietnam and a China visa to travel on this program. And one thing that we ask is that you get those before you actually go, although certain passport holders, including US passport holders, can get an on-arrival visa in Vietnam. We require you to get it before you leave, just to verify, because we have had students get stuck in the process. So we want to make sure you're ready to go before you actually depart on that flight. Obviously, so many of you are also currently working, if not all of you. So you'll want to start using those dates that we offered, August 10th through the 25th, to verify with your employers and your families, to make sure that you are covered during that time period and you're geared up and ready to go. The other thing is obviously making a financial plan. We'll talk through what the program fees look like in just a little bit here. So be thinking about that. And then check your US visa status if that's relevant to you. So let's dig into the finance piece a little bit more here. So we will be holding some optional financing your international experience sessions, and I'll announce those later this week if you want to join for those. We'll also make sure to record and post one of those as well, so you have access to that information. It will be, unfortunately, probably me again, but just talking through a little bit more of the nitty-gritty details of interacting with financial aid here on campus and what that looks like for you all, especially as graduate students in this particular program in a curriculum integrated setting. Also, start planning with employers for benefits. So if your employer is paying for the trip, often they'll need to additional documentation from us. That is something that you can reach out to the School of Business for on our end, and we can provide additional documentation and letters of support to your employers as needed. But you can right now start exploring your financial aid realities as far as whether you'd be eligible for financial aid. You won't be able to act based on this program until later, but you can explore what would be available to you as soon as we get the program budget in, which will happen in probably March of this year. So let's talk about what the program costs truly are and how they break down onto your accounts. So the first thing is there's a program fee. This doesn't all hit as one lump sum program fee. We'll talk about how it hits your account, but that $5,300 is what will hit your student account associated with this trip. This includes a number of things, including your tuition for the 4 credits, in-country expenses such as lodging, meals, transport, the programming that happens in-country. About 60 to 70% of your meals are covered, all breakfasts, some lunches, especially those lunches when you're on the road and traveling. So predominantly you're on your own for dinners. The things that are not covered there, but you do need to plan for, are out-of-pocket expenses. So that includes your round-trip airfare, your visas are at your own expense, unprogrammed meals that we just mentioned, and any sightseeing and additional money that you want to have while you're in these spectacular places. And so we do estimate all of that into the budget. So if you're accessing financial aid, you can access financial aid based on that. And that also helps you plan. So those pieces will not hit your account, but that $5,300 will hit your account. How that will be broken down when it hits your account will be broken apart by a $50 application fee that you'll be charged and need to pay as soon as you go into the Vikings Abroad system to apply for the program. There's also a $250 education abroad fee that will be associated with the course as well. And then the rest of it will be broken down into non-taxable and taxable fees. The reason why we do that is if we have any veterans traveling or anyone else that, and sometimes employers will want this based on what they're covering. The non-taxable fees are instructional cost-based fees. The taxable fees are going to be lodging and meals and relevant transportation that will be broken out. And so most employers and or if you're receiving GI Bill funding will need that breakout. And so that's how we charge your accounts. Before we actually charge your accounts, we'll send you an email that will have it broken down because it does look quite different than your typical term billing. So you can make sure, you can check and make sure it looks accurate to what we're telling you should be hitting your accounts. So a little bit more, as we mentioned earlier, the program fee, it covers 4 credits of tuition, lodging. The default is for double occupancy on this trip. You will have the option of upgrading if you want to pay additionally through our program partner to a single occupancy. That is absolutely up to you, but it's currently built in the program fees to be double occupancy. It also includes in-country transportation, breakfast, some required cultural activities, those pieces. Here's that out-of-pocket expenses again. One thing I didn't mention earlier is if you need immunizations to travel, that will also be included in your out-of-pocket expenses. The one thing I want to highlight right now is that you notice that it says round trip airfare because any of the flights that happen between Saigon to Hanoi or Hanoi to Shenzhen that are really a part of the interior of the trip will be covered in your program fee. We do that and book those for you so that we can make sure that everyone remains together throughout the program. It helps immensely logistically if you can imagine traveling with a group of 35 of you. So we want to make sure that everyone stays on the same flights and we create ease and efficiency. You are all supply chain people in that process. But what that means is the out-of-pocket expenses, what you will need to cover and work on is just that round trip airfare. So coming into your first city and leaving from your last city. And the reason why we put that in out-of-pocket expenses is so that you all, while most of you are working full-time and probably can't extend, if you do want to extend, you have the option of doing so and booking that on your own. So the next step, and I might ask Hannah here to talk a little bit more about Vikings Abroad and the system and what to expect. The one thing I want to mention is that I believe I did share with you all links to kind of how-to videos, tutorial videos on each of these topics already. And one of them is a screenshot guide of Vikings Abroad. So once that opens up, that screenshot video guide will be helpful. But I'll turn it over to Hannah to kind of talk about this piece.
So the Vikings Abroad portal is not going to look like the rest of your PSU web pages. It's a separately housed system. You will be logging in with your PSU Odin account. So when you do that, you want to go ahead and select I have a PSU single sign-on, and then you'll be prompted to log in with your Odin. Once you're in the system, you'll be able to access your application at any time throughout the application process. And there are, while you have a lot of resources outside of Vikings Abroad, in your Google Classroom and in D2L, you will also have quite a lot of resources in Vikings Abroad that are specifically related to going on an international program. So don't forget to be logging back in there if you have a question. Odds are there's going to be an answer somewhere in your online materials, and don't forget that Vikings Abroad is available there for you as well. There will be several stages to Vikings Abroad, so when you first start, you'll log in and want to complete all of the empty checkboxes that you see, and then as you move through the system and confirm your participation, you'll be prompted to log back in and complete additional requirements that are then relevant to you at that stage of the process.
So it'll be fun. So let's talk about what happens after you get through that process in Vikings Abroad. We will, you'll get a notification from the system that you've been accepted to the program, and that's when you'll need to go in and confirm. And these will be the next steps, and I'll walk you through these in greater detail again. So you'll need to go in and during that time period, you're going to want to reconfirm your ability to travel and your financial plan with all your obligations. The big thing is that I'll talk about in a moment is reviewing the cost drop policy associated with hitting confirm. So when you do hit confirm, you are committing financially to traveling this summer, and we'll talk about what that looks like in a second. You'll also want to go in, as Hannah mentioned, complete some post-decision paperwork. There's a lot of risk and liability pieces that we ask you to sign off on and to read through and make sure you're familiar with as a part of the travel process and traveling associated with the university. And some of those pieces, as I mentioned, will be pieces like a health disclosure form that will help us manage, help you manage some of your health and safety in country. And we'll talk through that a little bit more a little bit later. And then the big thing is, while you're still waiting for this, we're waiting for everyone to hit that confirm button, so that way we can finalize some realities with our logistics partner and get you the logistics packet, which will give you the instructions for purchasing your airfare. So the quicker you all do that, the quicker we can get you into the next step. So let's talk about what actually you're committing to when you hit that confirm button. And so we do have the cost drop policy, and I will post that and share that with you all after tonight as well, so you can review it. But the big thing is, as soon as you hit confirm, essentially what you're committing yourself to is the expenses associated that are non-recoverable at that point. You're basically giving us authorization to start putting out hotel deposits, flight deposits on your behalf because you are committing to the trip. So should you need to drop after that point, then you are liable for those costs that we cannot recover. There's also a piece that is simply non-recoverable at all past that point. So that piece is the $50 application fee, and also the $250 non-refundable deposit that is that education abroad fee. So those pieces, as soon as you hit confirm, you're on the hook for. There's no going back. The other pieces, while typically at the university, they do hold you liable to all non-recoverables, we do realize, especially for our incredibly busy students that are making this fit into a curricular requirement, that there are some things you can't plan for. So there is a petition process should you need to drop, and we assess the non-recoverables and it's outside of your ability at that point, or if you've had extreme life circumstances, which we have had from time to time, or work circumstances change. You can fill out a petition process that will basically petition us, and it will go to an internal review committee to review whether we can reduce the non-recoverable pieces that you'll be charged at that point. Please read that when I send it to you. Please just take a look at it one last time before you hit that confirm button. So once you get through that confirmation stage and we get you the logistics packet, then you can start all the next steps that are really logistics and pre-departure steps, getting truly geared up to go. So these are what I'm just going to go through a couple of these tonight, because we will talk about especially 4, 5, and 6 a lot closer in pre-departure, in some of your pre-departure meetings that you'll have with Daniel and with Jay, his co-pilot for the trip. So we'll talk about those a lot more as they become a little more relevant. The 2 things that I know are high on your minds right now will be purchasing airfares and starting the visa process. So I'm going to talk you through just a little bit of what to expect there right now. So the big thing to know is that purchasing flights and visa steps are intimately connected. So while people may want to start applying for their visas right now, you cannot do so. You have to take several additional steps in order to be able to be geared up to apply for those visas. So the big thing, as I mentioned, what we're trying to get you to do right now is, one, take care of your passport and make sure all of those documents are in line. If you don't have a current passport or a passport that doesn't expire, you can't start the visa process. You have to confirm your participation in Vikings Abroad. That's a university level policy. None of us can go until you all confirm that we're ready to go and that we're planning to have a trip this year. You also need to wait until you receive specific instructions for us. As we mentioned, we're still in planning, so we want to make sure that we get you to the cities on time and make sure that you depart after programming is ended, and that is a requirement for the program to complete the program requirements. So we need to give you those exact instructions before you can actually purchase your airfare. Then you have to purchase your airfare, and it's not until that point we have to have all that information from you and have your passport information and have confirmations that you're going before we start reaching out to our on-ground partners to get the letters of support that we need to get you through the visa process. So it will be super critical that you work closely with us and that you pay attention to deadlines in each step of this process so that you are geared up to so that you have everything you need so that we can send you on your way on starting that visa process. There's attend a winter cohort meeting. You can ignore that. My apologies for that. The big thing is we will give you some instructions, and I will have some optional, we'll probably have some optional just online webinars and Q&A as you're starting to fill out your visas. The big thing I want to mention is because visa processes are so individualized based on your individual circumstances, and of course we're beholden to the realities of and the whims of foreign governments, we can't make any guarantees in those processes, and it's really up to you to manage that process for yourself. We're here to help to provide that documentation. I can definitely give you tips. Hannah can give you tips on ways of filling it out. We'll provide you with as much information as needed to really get through that, but it is up to you to manage that process on your own. And just a couple final considerations around enrollment that you'll want to start planning for as well. So we'll automatically enroll you for the course, so you won't have to worry about that. And we'll email you once you are enrolled so that you can go in and verify that everything looks correct in the system. The big thing is that this trip is only 4 credits. If you are accessing financial aid during summer term, you have to have 5 credits in order to qualify for aid. So you do have the option of working with Daniel to do a 1 credit buy arrangement with him in order to qualify for aid, where he'll give you a little additional prep and engagement related to the trip and the intercultural experience that you'll have some deliverables on. In addition, once you can, just a reminder again that you're responsible for non-recoverable costs once you confirm the trip in Vikings Abroad. If you don't know this, we just want to make sure that you're super clear on what you're saying yes to once you hit confirm. With that, I'm gonna just open it up to questions. Any questions you may have. I know there were a couple things that Daniel and I just wanted to get down to the nitty gritty and best choices for the trip as we've had experience over the years. And so I'm going to quit my screen share right now so you all can see us. So one thing I know Daniel wanted to mention is that if you are a snorer, someone who snores and/or someone who's a light sleeper and really needs your sleep, you're going to want to think about upgrading to that individual room. And/or if you're a snorer and can find another snorer, you may start interacting with each other now and start planning for that, because you wouldn't believe how many sleepless nights some people do get and how tough that can be on international travel. It's something you don't think about that much when you're not used to doing a double occupancy situation.
Right, so this is some of the best practice that we observed the last few years, especially if you've been living in a big mansion, palace, and all of a sudden now you have two people, sharing a room with someone in 320 square feet room. It's certainly very uncomfortable. So you gotta think through that. I know money matters, but I think your health, your well-being also matters. So the fact that these trips are not tourist trips, we're there for you to get deeply engaged in terms of business setting, visiting factory, talking to decision makers. So each day we are visiting on average 2 factories.
Yeah.
And we're starting about, you finish your breakfast at 7, we're loading up the bus either 7:15 or 7:30 in the morning, and you don't get back to your hotel probably until 5 o'clock or 5:30. There are several nights where you might actually get together with your teammates to make sure that you have everything all lined up for next day or for the assignment that we'll assign you during the trip, so that we have some way to make sure that you're learning all the valuable things. And then, so yes, there will be a couple nights where you might want to hang out, having a beer, enjoy the local cuisine, and go shopping. Well, there's also a few of you might actually going to go to the bar and come back until 1 in the morning. We all know about those. So if you're a light sleeper and your roommate like to hang until 1 in the morning and come home, that's going to disrupt your sleep quite a bit. And then what happens then, the 2 of you are going to be really grumpy at 7 o'clock in the morning. And then can you imagine if you start having a bad roommate on Tuesday, first week, you have at least 12 more days to go. So that's our experience. And by then you say, hey, Daniel, can I upgrade to a single room? I really wish I made that decision. It's kind of late because most of those hotels that we're visiting are meant to be highly fully occupied, so we couldn't just make a last minute change. So it's just better to know yourself now, right? So if you're a light sleeper, you like to hang out really late in the evening, you live in a big mansion now, you're not comfortable living in a small space, or you just don't like to have sharing things. And I think those are the ones that you need to acknowledge early on. So.
Absolutely. And start talking to people about that roommate situation if you plan on going double occupancy. Because it is, and you do get to choose that. We'll provide surveys so that we can match you up and make sure that you're all set with the people that you want to. If you don't choose a roommate, then we'll automatically assign you one unless otherwise. But that is something that we definitely recommend you start thinking about now, early, as you're getting to know each other in the program. So, and the other piece that I know Daniel and I had talked about, and we'll talk about it quite a bit more at pre-departures, is really that health piece and managing health piece. And I can tell you one of the biggest things that in this particular trip, looking at Asia, it becomes super problematic and can be very difficult. If not, it's not impossible to navigate, it's just difficult. Dietary restrictions are pretty difficult to manage, especially in Asia, in the places that we go. We have great on-ground partners who really help in that process and will provide you with tools around that, such as last year we were able to provide everyone with locally written in the local language explanations as far as dietary needs, but there's no guarantee, right? We can't get back into the kitchen. So if you have some of those additional pieces that might be restrictive that you want to talk to about navigating through, Hannah's here for that. I'm here for that. We can tell you what we've learned over the years. Daniel's here. Like we can talk you through that, but it is something that for you all to manage, again, your own health and wellness on the trip as well. We're here to help navigate as we can, but we can't make any guarantees around those pieces. I know particularly people who have had celiacs or are vegans in the past have had some tough rides. It's been done many times over the years, but it usually does require people to bring their own food to supplement what they don't know and what they can't see and can't guarantee in country. So that is something to think about. And again, know you have a supportive team to help you work through those pieces. It's just starting to think about them now is super helpful. So we're gonna give you a couple minutes for questions, and maybe I'll just let Daniel talk a little bit more about a day in the, you talked 2 to 3 visits. I mean, we are trying to keep you a little bit more about what the trip looks like on the daily is, we're keeping you busy. We're trying to maximize, especially time in front of local executives there. That's the point of being over there. So one thing to know is that classroom time is going to be predominantly non-traditional as far as debriefs on buses or briefings on buses, utilizing that bus time that you do have, and minimizing lecture time, because what you're really there to do is experience the place, the local industries, and so we try to maximize that in every way for you all.
Any questions, Wes? No?
All right.
Okay, so what's the next step? So we'll send out the packet once we have it ready?
Yes, so we will be sending out, after tonight, a link to this recording, the slides. I'll also send the cost drop policy, and then you're looking out for later this month instructions on going into Vikings Abroad and applying. And again, my commitment to you is, I know the reality of waiting to purchase airfare is tough. So as soon as we can get through those pieces and have that information ready, and you all are confirmed in the program, we will get you that information as soon as possible so you can take those next steps. But the more you can help us in getting into Vikings Abroad and finishing up those steps, the quicker we'll be able to move forward with that process. So thanks so much for those who joined. I hope you're getting excited. This, as Daniel mentioned, is absolutely one of the highlights of the program. And I am sad I'm not traveling with GSCM students this year. I know you all are always a pleasure to travel with because I've had the opportunity several times, but I have no doubt you will have an incredible trip. So, all right.
All right, so thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Good night.